Sand. It's rough, it's coarse, and it gets everywhere. Okay, Star Wars quotes aside, this is a project I worked on last fall. This is my newest version and a completely different engine than I originally started out with, but it's a sand simulation game. It has procedurally generated terrain. I'm still working on it, making updates. I used to have a save system, which I'm going to add eventually here, but there's so much work to do on this game. I kind of want to make it like an actual game, have a full main menu. It's just a small game, so it's nothing big. I probably won't even sell it. I'll probably just give it up for free unless there's a high demand for the full product. But currently it's just procedurally generated terrain. There's just a forest biome and a desert. And then there's also lakes that appear. And then there's like plants. There's the full UI at the bottom where you can scroll through all your different materials. This is currently using fire on the trees. There's also two different types of plants. The ones that procedurally grow are, I believe, cacti, and then the ones you plant are trees, maybe vice versa. They grow slightly differently. They have slightly different rule sets. But and then for the control system, it's just hold left click to place sand. You can shift scroll and that resizes your brush. You can hit F1 to hide all the UIs so you can show off your art projects if you make any art within the game. If you hit space, it will freeze the game, and if you use the numpad 1 through 3, it's going to do different slows. And then this is the first clip I ever recorded of the game. This is not at all optimized, but I used lightweight Java graphics library to generate my own engine, and this is a very crappy engine. This was the first time I ever worked with graphics, so it is very bad. I think this was real time. It's just that slow and unoptimized. So this is my second clip ever on this project. Now the clipping is an optimization step, so instead of rendering all of the particles that have ever fallen, it clusters all the ones at the bottom of the screen, and when it makes that new, it clips out the screen because I had rendering issues. And then this one sped up quite a bit too. I fixed some other issues, made it snow faster, and I got that lerping background, which I no longer have. It doesn't really suit the game anymore, but I thought it was kind of cool to have that color change as the game plays through, because you don't really do anything. This was just watching it fill the screen randomly. And then if you watch the console there, you can see that it keeps filling up the bottom. So instead of rendering all of that as individual particles, it will render as a chunk. Here's where some interesting stuff happens. Now I'm tracking where the mouse position is, and now if I hold click and it doesn't crash when I go off the sides. That was very important because that took so long for me to get right, is to be able to have the game not crash when the mouse was outside the screen. It still, I think, crashes if the sand tries to go over the edge. Here's a clip where I show my optimization that I've done. The first one was no optimization, every particle was running, which was fine when there was only a few layers, but now that I was getting to higher resolutions, you can definitely see it happening. And the second one, I'm kind of clustering everything together, so I'm rendering less. There's still bugs, but with those bugs is I'm pushing each one of those clusters to the GPU instead of pushing them all at once, which I eventually figure out later, but that was a complex problem that took me forever to solve. And then by complex, I mean it was one line of code, I had to move up 10 lines, but it fixed everything. And then here I have side scrolling, so the worlds run in chunks now, and all the chunks are horizontal, and you can just loop through them all. Here I kind of slowed it down a little bit just to get a better view of making sure the mouse is in the right position. I think some issues occurred on the previous version where the mouse wasn't right. Here I'm just kind of displaying it more, just moving it faster, making sure. And then when I resize the screen, everything stretches a little bit, which I eventually fix. I had to do a rescaler, but yeah. And then there was also glitches between the chunks where things would fall in between, which that took a while to solve too. I had to rebuild a lot of the engine just to fix that small problem. And then this was where procedural generated terrain was starting to come into effect, but it was not really that good. It was just slight purling noise. The thing I work on now is a biome system, and then I was working on clustering to try to make it faster with vertical lines, but as you can see, that did not work out. I have a lot of graphical issues where it's displaying things where they're not. Here's where I get the A, D, and then multiple colors of sand. This was a little bit difficult too, of just kind of jerry-rigging my system. End up completely rebuilding the engine because this was just utter garbage. But you can kind of see that it's still laggy because of how the clustering worked. And then here is where I start to try to add some plants. Now, the plants grew super slow, but yet there's different types of physics with the plants. Because obviously you want plants to be able to grow limbs, which if it's a sand particle, if it falls like sand, it's just not going to look good. So it's a new structure type. Which there was some glitches with this too. If you can kind of see when I plant the sand, it goes one up. That was just a modulus overflow error where it was assimilating too much stuff together. But then the fire was also really laggy at this stage because I had a few optimization steps that I missed out. I'm trying to think what they were. I think it was doubling up on all the work, where every single particle, every time it would go to the next one, it would check all four corners, even though it moved over, so it's already doing too much. And here's where I tried to start making water. This water was garbage. I was just kind of like building all of this on like my own brain of just trying to figure things out. So on this one, it doesn't try to flow as smooth or even as the current version, which was kind of slightly hard to solve because you want to make it as optimized as possible. So when you go through all the water particles, is you want to see how far it can move to the side. Instead, this is kind of falling like sand, but it has an extra check where it goes a little bit farther. Here, I think I fixed the water a little bit better, so it runs faster. There was some glitches with it, if I recall right. Yeah. And then I'm just kind of growing plants here. These are just all my old videos, and then I think I added pause game. I think this is what this one was about, is I can now pause the game, the ash kind of falls like the trees do, and then it's kind of just a cycle of different plant growths. And here I'm trying to dabble in a different color palette. I eventually go back to the original color palette, at least kind of a branch off of it. I think this was too light and smooth. Like it was I don't think the colors matched as good as the original one. But I'm just kind of showcasing the new red fire. I eventually just go back to the black fire. I think it just looks better. And then I also changed how the sand would break. So on the original one, I had it break where it was, and there was a glitch there. And then I had it break on the top piece above it, and then that kind of looked weird. So then I had it break on the top piece of sand that is of the same type, which that's just for this version. That was an optimization thing. It looked funny. It caused other glitches to remove the bottom one, where things were just not working quite right. I made water a little bit different. Here's a graphical glitch. I don't remember the full story on this, but it was completely broken, and obviously it just doesn't look good. It ran like a dream, but that's just because it was completely borked. And then here is the new engine, where it's completely fresh. Everything was made brand new. I added the UI system. It doesn't quite move like how the current version does, and there's extra particles within the game. So then we got just the plants. It runs like a dream because this is where I fixed that graphical issue. And then I also have oil in this, which is not in the newest version, but oil does burn and it acts like a liquid. And then here, if I believe right, this is where I showcase the command system, which I currently have disabled. It's still in the game. There's also weather cycles, but the command system has another issue where you can't close the game until you type another command, which was obviously not what I wanted. And then here is one of the later versions. See if I move. This is where I originally added the biome system, and then also added stone or rocks below the dirt. So it used to always be dirt, and here is a beach biome. And then you can see the dirt under that one. That's a forest biome that happens to be a lake. And then the beach biome is the one I'm currently in. And then I added dirt, which flows differently, and then grass that goes on the dirt, which grass doesn't survive within the dirt and it kind of grows around the surface. It's also flammable, and then this is how the stone reacts. It's slightly different than plants. It has a bigger radius of where it can not fall and support itself. And I think I'll go farther. This is the forest biome, so I can just burn all the trees. And then this one is only this linear area. I can't move up. I eventually make it so it's a full 2D world, so you can go up as high as you want, and you can go horizontal as far as you want. There is still a glitch where sand won't fall below your screen. It's kind of an optimization thing currently. I need to figure out a better clustering system so sand will continuously fall, because if you go up into the sky, then stuff won't fall below it. So I think that's the next clip here. I'm actually going to take a step back here. I need to work on the loading screen too. When you first start the game, it's just a white screen, and then eventually it renders the first area you're on, but you can see it's kind of laggy. That's because it's still rendering the terrain. Why'd it go black? Oh, I guess it was trying to figure itself out. Maybe my recording stopped and it finally finished the terrain rendering. But yeah, right here you can see that I can place all the sand I want up there, and then until I scroll down, it won't fall into the base area, which is, I guess, not insanely bad, but I'd want that to work forever. And you can kind of see the dirt there. And then breaking the stone. This is laggier because I'm recording this at a very high resolution, because I want the game to look as best as possible. This is multi-threaded. I'm running a bunch of programs, so it doesn't normally run this crappy, but I'll also give people the option to change their resolution just in case they want to run the game faster. This is running at like 60 FPS, which the sand falls slow. I need to also make it so the sand falls at a constant rate instead of being based completely on FPS. And then this brings us to what current day is. So today I worked on the color palette system, so now I can have different color palettes. Now I just need to add a control so I can swap through the different color palettes when I add them. I did delete my current color palette of the game when I reverted back to the original on here, so I will have to figure out what colors those were. But yeah, I don't know how much of the code that people want to see, but this is the color palette object that I made, where it just has the color palette at top and enumerated colors, so I can just easily say, oh, I want this to be orange, and it goes through a switch statement, so then I can say, oh, I want color palette 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you guys want to see more code, I don't know, leave a like, or if you just leave a like anyways, and I'll just do whatever. Leave a comment.